2, 1, happy welcome. If you ever get asked to do tip to tail vectors and you want to be able to draw it in Desmos, I just want to be able to show you how you can do that. So, how you can think about this problem. So if you have, I'm going to sketch just kind of random vectors here. So here is, let's say, one vector right here. So now this vector in Cartesian plane, so it is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 3. So it's going to be 4 and 3. Let's say we have another vector, and this vector, let's say it's somewhere on the second quadrant. Let's maybe put it over here. And this one would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 3. So -7, 3. So those are two vectors that we would have. How am I going to sketch these tip to tail? So now what do we mean by tip to tail? It means that you're starting this vector and you're ending over here, right? Or head to tail sometimes. So you have, okay, your head is over here, your tail is over here. So if you want to be able to take this one, sure, I can duplicate it and draw it easily like this, or you can do it on a piece of paper. But if you want to do the same thing in Desmos, it's not going to be as easy. You have to kind of think about how this process will be. Now, if you wanted to do this, this is how you would go about something like that. All right, so here it is. Here's Desmos, and so I want to be able to do this tip to tail. So how am I going to do that? First, I'm going to just enter all the points that I need. So point 0, which is going to be the origin. Now, the next point is going to be the end point of my first vector. That would have been 4, 3. Now, these are not vectors, these are just points. Now, if I want a vector, so let's say vector number 1, v1 is equal to, so you can define it by typing in vector, but now you have to enter both the starting and the ending. Now, the starting is the origin, the ending is just point number 1, and you have your vector. So that's not very difficult to do. Now, you can do the second one, so I can type in point number 2, and point number 2, let's say, is -7, 3. And now I can have my vector number 2 equals, so if you want to display it, that's going to be starting from the origin and ending at point number 2. But this isn't what we wanted, so that would be great. We can find the resultant vector, so v1 plus v2, etc., and we can define these things. But if we want tip to tail, then that vector number 2, you have to be careful, because the starting point isn't going to be the origin. The starting point is actually point number 1, which is the ending point of that first vector. So this is what I mean. So I'll do, let's call this vector 3 equals a vector, and we will start from point 1. And now where are we going to end so that we have actually a shifted vector, right, from tip to tail? You cannot input here point number 2, because it's just going to bring you back to there. So meaning your starting point was 4, 3, and then your ending is -7, 3. That's not what we want. What we want is we have point number 1 plus point number 2, because that's where it actually ends, right? So it shifts over by -7, 3, but it's -7, 3 from the starting point of 4, 3. And so now you have these two particular vectors. So let me make these the same color, okay, so that you can see that. And these vectors are now identical, so that they have now this shift. So I'm going to get this out of the way so you can see all of these through. And now notice v1 plus v3, right, is your resultant vector that's displayed, and that's exactly the same thing as v1 plus v2. Notice it just overlapped it there. That's how you can do tip to tail. Now, if you wanted to do another vector and another vector, then don't forget, you're going to have to be starting from that point, right, where your, well, in this case, the vector 3 ended. Now, how do you do that, right? How do you find that point? I mean, you can look at that point and find it. But in here, it nicely falls on the grid. But if it doesn't fall on the grid and, you have decimal places and so on, then, you won't be able to see it that easily. So don't forget that you can find all of these things by simply saying, okay, so, well, vector number 3, right? So notice that if I put start, this now will label for me where it started from. But you can also enter end like this, and now that is the point where it actually ends in there. So if you had a third vector, doesn't matter what it was, so let's put one in here. So let's say vector number 4 equals, and you wanted to define it from the new starting point, so you can do this, v3 end, that is actually your starting point, right? And then you have to say v3 end plus whatever else, where that true vector, that last vector would be. I don't know what it would be. I mean, let's just, for the sake of simplicity, let's put -3. I'm making this up, okay? There you go. And that is another tip to tail, right? So that you have in here all the way through. I'm going to remove these, okay, within here. So there you have it. So if you want to do this, you can certainly do it in this way. You can label your points, etc. And it's just so much easier to do tip to tail on Desmos. I hope this helps somebody, okay, as you're going through. Okay, thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit a like, subscribe, and we'll see you back at some point in a future video.